Before the video starts, this is not like my regular content. So far, I've made a couple videos about games, and this one's going to be a little bit different. I want to have a platform where I can talk about just about anything with the community, and I figured why not start early? So, I learned from my college public speaking class that you typically want to start off with establishing credibility about a topic that you're talking on. So, we'll start there. I actually have nothing to say really. I'm not much of a philosopher. There's really nothing here of any substance. The best thing I can offer is that I guess I'm human just like everyone else, and maybe that's enough. I would also like to point out that I'm not using a script. This is just going to be basically freestyling. But I have put quite a lot of thought into this, and I thought it was worth making. So hopefully me talking about random things I think about can become regular in between some of my more main content. So let's get started. By sacrifice, what do I mean exactly? I'm referring to specifically scenarios where you sacrifice yourself to save someone or something. I'm sure most of us have seen those videos about the perfect bleed out spot, or in something like a game where you feel that urge to sacrifice for others. Hell, I think it's a common thing amongst guys to think about scenarios where we lay down our lives to be remembered as a hero. Don't lie, we've all been there. But before we talk about why we have this obsession with it and idealize it, we have to take a little bit of a step back. We have to touch on something a little more complicated, because I think the idea is driven from purpose. This is where things get a little tricky. What is purpose? What does it mean to us? It varies for each and every person. Some believe we have one greater purpose, and some believe we don't have one at all. But I think I've got a pretty good idea. You see, everyone wants to find their purpose, whether it's the purpose of all humankind or how they fit into society. We all crave that sense of purpose. There's this scene from the Disney Pixar film Soul, where the main character is asking about another character's assigned purpose. He's under the assumption that we're born with one, given one, and he's given a confused look. Because although obviously the movie's fictional, the meaning of it remains true. You don't start out with the purpose. None of us do. You're not born to reach a certain profession, or be a good person, or to even be happy. No, it's much greater than that. Just stay with me here. Your purpose is purpose. We all seek it. We all desire it through something. But once you reach a certain goal, what then? Is it just maintaining that position? No, you find something else. You reach for higher heights. Your goal in life is to find what it is. You're not born with a spark or passion for something. You find it and you create it naturally, whether it's a hobby or an occupation or just any style of living. It's the sole fact that we have no greater purpose that drives us to create our own. Which is why I think purpose within and of itself is purpose. I thought of this for a long time, but was never able to find the words for it. But weirdly enough, a secret level in Ultra Kill actually put it really well.
In the end, nothing matters. There's no point in trying to find joy in life, for life in and of itself is suffering.
You're wrong.
Huh?
You criticize those who consider our vast intelligence a gift, and yet also misguide yourself to believe our meaningless is a curse.
How could it not be?
Nothing we do matters in the end, and that is precisely why we are not shackled by the burden of expectations, the fear of eternal judgment, or the failure to meet up to an arbitrary definition of what makes our limited time not wasted. Time cannot be wasted, for there is no greater purpose to life than simply living it.
But still, in that case, the meaninglessness of our actions draws to the same conclusion. There is no reason to act, for any action is simply a temporary fluctuation that will, nevertheless, lead to the same conclusion.
Quite the contrary. Because we have no greater purpose, we are free to set our own, to create self-defined goals for which to strive. For some, it may be nothing. For some, it may be pleasure. For some, it may be creation. For some, it may be improving the lives of others. It is because we have no greater purpose that time spent on goals by oneself cannot be time wasted. In the end, nothing matters, and therefore you have no reason not to do what you want, rather than whatever illusion of greater purpose is forced on you by others, or even your own misguided thoughts. What is Ultra Kill even about? Like I said before, purpose is something that you make. but it can be something temporary or permanent. Let's use me as an example, right? Not to get ahead of ourselves, but being able to do YouTube as an occupation is something I would love to do. And as unrealistic as it may be, I think it's worth trying. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that content creation is my purpose, but I'll level with you. So far, with the few videos I've made and the positive attention I've gathered, it's been quite fulfilling. I'd say that this is true for most of, if not all people, that what they believe is their purpose is not easy to attain. There will always be low points and hardships, and sometimes even highlights, but nothing should dissuade you from what you believe is your purpose if it really means that much. The point I'm getting at is that someone's purpose can either be long-lasting or temporary. If it's temporary, sometimes you'll be moving from one to another, and there's nothing wrong with that. So now let's get back on track. How does this all tie into sacrifice? I believe it goes hand in hand with purpose. I asked before, when you fulfill a certain purpose, what do you do then? And although I'm sure that there's a good answer for that, I think the question's more important to the topic. The thing about sacrifice, in the sense that we're talking about it, there's nothing to do afterwards. In a short moment, you make a decision to sacrifice. It seems temporary because there's such little buildup to it. In the moment, you know it's what you need to do. And in doing so, you fulfill a purpose. You've made a decision that you cannot backtrack on. And I think that's where that desire for sacrifice comes in, knowing you fulfilled a purpose. You see, when it comes to goals or wanting to reach a certain point, you sometimes have a hard time knowing when you've hit it. When do you know that you've made it? Whether it's something like fame or financially, what is that point that you know, I've made it? I think it's natural for humans to constantly crave more. Once we reach a certain point, all we think about is what's next. We get so stuck in moving forward and progressing that sometimes we forget to acknowledge our own accomplishments. But when it comes to sacrifice, that's not the case. When you've made your choice and enacted on it, your work is done. Imagine finally reaching your dream job. Years of hard work and effort, and it finally pays off. Well, you can't just sit around and do nothing all day. Keep working. Maybe work even harder than you were to even get this job in the first place. Now focus on that promotion. Now instead, make a sacrifice to save others for a noble cause. That's it. It's an incredibly difficult decision, laying down your life. And yet, it's so simple. There's no worry, no maintainment, and no having to pursue a goal in the last one. I believe it's our human nature to desire fulfillment, and through sacrifice, in your final moments, you know you fulfilled your purpose. You ever seen Red vs. Blue? Spoiler warning for a show that's over 10 years old. At the end of the 13th season, the character Church makes a sacrifice. He gives a speech, and in it talks about how when a hero makes a sacrifice, they have no idea if it was successful or amounted to anything. He ends it by saying you just need to have faith. Faith in that your sacrifice was meaningful. That part of not knowing whether your sacrifice made a difference or didn't is part of what makes you feel so complete. At the end of the day, I think we all just don't want our lives to be wasted. One of the worst things a person can go through is looking back and regretting their missed or failed opportunities. When you lay down your life for a noble cause or for others, your work is done. There's no chance to look back and rethink your decision. It's already over. Now, this isn't to say that everyone is willing to sacrifice themselves. I'm probably a pussy, so I wouldn't. But given the right circumstances to me or other people that probably wouldn't otherwise, we would make that choice. But this is more focused on the fantasy behind it. Why you see those videos about the perfect bleed out spot. Or when playing a game and the opportunity presents itself, you instantly make that decision. You want to be the hero. You want to be remembered for your sacrifice. But more than that, you want to fulfill your purpose. The purpose you found for yourself, the moment you knew that this is what you were meant to do. You can put your mind at ease and relish in your accomplishment because you did it. You fulfilled your purpose.